Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast. Shortly, I'm going to get to chat with the one and only Rick McMurray from Ash as he launches his new solo project, Burned as Witches. But before then, it's the usual reminder for myself. If you would, please do follow Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and X and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. But that's enough of that. It's time to get on with the interview. So let's go. Genuinely delighted today to have Rick from Ash on the podcast. Obviously, welcome Rick to the Full Pelt Music Podcast. First question I always ask is just simply, how are you today?
I'm good. Yeah. I've just been just had a little rehearsal this morning, and that went pretty well. Well, just in this room, you can probably see a drum kit sitting right behind me there. So this is the kind of my music room, which is a complete state. I think I'm blocking out most of the mess here, but yeah, yeah, it's a good day. Good day. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a very good day for me because I get to talk to you, Rick, which is going to be a great day for me, regardless. Because obviously, massive fan of Ash. Everyone knows you from Ash, beloved drummer of Ash. But I'm actually really excited to be talking to you about your new project, Burned as Witches. So the first single has only just come out, so people are maybe only just sort of clocking on to what you're doing with this. So it's a great time for me to get to talk to you about it all. And I think the best place for us to start very much is in the origins of the project and the inspiration behind the project. So it was written, obviously, in the wake of the untimely passing of your longtime agent, Steve Strange, who isn't someone that I knew personally. However, I could tell from the outpouring of love at the time, online, how well thought of Steve was amongst his peers, and obviously, always just devastating when we lose a close friend. So obviously, um, not the best time, for yourself, but coming from that, obviously, is this really amazing record. So, I mean, Rick, what can you tell us about the journey for you in creating Burned as Witches?
Yeah, well, as you said, it started just after our agent. He'd been with us he'd been with Ash like right from the start, like back to '95. He was a local guy, Northern Ireland. We actually knew him in Belfast when he booked some of the like tiny little gigs that we did. He was the booker in this club. We were always asking him for like support tours and stuff like that. But just as we were starting to get gigs in London, he moved to London to become an agent, and we kind of like both kind of rose together. We were his first band to break, and we gave him a lot of support in the early days as well. Went both ways, and he went on to be like he's complete music industry legend. And we only found out he was sick like at the beginning of the week, and by the end of the week he'd passed away. And we were actually at that point we were doing our much delayed COVID tour as well for the Teenage Wildlife like best of album, and it was the last gig of that tour in the Roundhouse. It was almost became like a wake for Steve. It was like everyone in the music business come down. It was like a for us it was going to be this huge cathartic moment. We could get put the whole COVID thing behind us and sort of move on to the future. And then it just turned into something completely different. So at the end of that, I come home and I didn't know what to do with myself. It was just like Steve was on my mind. I just like pulled out a guitar and started writing a load of riffs because he was a huge like metalhead, and it was almost like a kind of way to be close to him, I guess. And like sort of before I knew it, I had this like whole pile of riffs. And there was a lot of other things that kind of like fed into that moment where me going like, oh my god, I've actually got an album here. I'd worked with a close friend or sound engineer in a few projects, which never really, we never sort of got them over the finish line. I think I was expecting to go back to that, but then he got back with his old band, a band called Lodestar, who were great, and I was like super pleased with them. But I think I found myself with this stuff, and I was like, okay, you can either finish this or it can go in the hard drive with all the other stuff. And it kind of felt like if I don't do this now, I'm never going to finish it. anything, and I can just kind of forget it, just do the Ash thing and whatever. So it was just like this kind of like perfect storm of a few things coming together at the same time that sort of like just got me focused and got me going. You know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it for Steve. So that was it was a bit of a rocky road, like to begin with. There was like a few hiccups along the road, but we can get to that later.
Yeah, I mean, I do say out of obviously tragedy really with what happened to Steve, but I love that his hand really was on your shoulder throughout the process of
Yeah, yeah.
making this album.
That was a sort of like quite a heavy. I think when I first like started it, it was just like, right, it's like Steve's the inspiration of this, so it almost felt like it all had to be about him. But then it was literally almost like it was too heavy for me to sort of deal with emotionally, and it went in the back burner. Ash had a few more gigs at Christmas, and we sort of got on with that. So I didn't think about it for a few months, and then I came back to it, and it was almost like him sitting on my shoulder, going, "This doesn't have to be about me." I'd be so proud, regardless. That I was the inspiration. And it was just like, okay, that kind of freed me up to go, right, like what can I, what do I want to write about? So yeah, that was a big moment in the process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a fan, I find music such a powerful mechanism to deal with my own emotions, and I can only imagine, obviously, as an artist creating the music, the process that you go through to create that, but also, it's simultaneous with that process of dealing with, whatever's going on in your life at the time, and obviously dealing with this situation. It's music is such a powerful tool, I find.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly is, and it was like, the whole, I hate to use the word journey, but the experience of making the record, I felt like I learned a lot about myself, and just a lot about the creative process. I think you're used to being in the bands, and I'm lucky to be in a band with like Tim Wheeler, who's like an absolute like fantastic songwriter, and it's almost like, okay, I don't have to worry about that so much. It's like if I write something cool, it'll get like you know considered. But with Tim just being such a prolific and such a great songwriter, it's almost like I don't have to like push myself that hard. But with this, it was just like, okay, the responsibilities all on my shoulders here, and it stands or falls by what I do, which was kind of in some ways scary, but also like quite a kind of liberating thing. It's just like, just it was more a case of, right, I'll just see this through to the end, whatever happens, and if it's good, it's good, and if it's not, it's fine. I'll have finished something, So
Yeah, I mean, I love how you've just sort of ended that part there. It was saying, like, however it's received, I guess, it's still for you is such a big achievement because obviously you've been releasing music with Ash, for a couple of decades or so now. Don't want to age either
yeah,
of us in talking about
very
it,
very
but
generous of you to say a couple of decades.
Oh yeah, I was trying to be kind to us, trying to be kind to us because I've been listening to you for pretty much that whole time as well. So yeah, I'm right there with you. And obviously with this, I guess it is a different. I don't know if pressure is the right word, but it's definitely a different situation you find yourself in where this is you as an individual really. I know it's behind the name of Burned as Witches, but this is very much all you. And yeah, an achievement, massive achievement, but must feel very different this release to all of the other releases you've had.
Yeah, yeah, and to be honest, I just I think with the sort of the genre of music I've chosen as well, I felt like just going under my own name was just like a, I don't know, maybe a bit of a cop out, or just like, I think it kind of just wanted it to feel like a band rather than sort of like, hey, this is me. It's like I'm maybe to a certain extent sort of just like hiding myself behind a name in a way. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. So sometimes the solo projects like a can be a bit of a double edged sword, let's say. you know. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. But I mean, for listeners that are listening to this chat that haven't clocked, what is behind these songs. Obviously, when you talk about the band, you Burned as Witches, it's very much you, Rick, isn't it? Because you play every note, guitar, bass,
Yeah.
drums, obviously sing as well, which must be quite an interesting sort of yeah, scenario for you to get your head around that that's going to be your voice that people are
Uh,
hearing.
yeah, totally. I mean, it's like even family and stuff like that, because this room is where like all of the writing happened really. Drums were recorded elsewhere, but everything else was done in here. And when it came to vocals, I had to like make sure that the house was empty for me to do it. It's like, and that's coming from someone who's done backing vocals with Ash for it's close on 20 years that I've done that. But just for any to have anyone else hear me sort of like fumbling my way through trying to find a melody or whatever, it's just like, yeah, it's like I guess it's quite a you need to be very vulnerable. I think with any other instrument, it's like it's coming out of your fingers, but it's like vocals, singing, it's coming like out of your soul, for want of a better word. So it's a very sort of like emotionally naked place to be. But once you get beyond getting beyond that and like doing it in front of a crowd, I'm fine. But like doing it in front of my family, that's weird.
Yeah, yeah, it is funny, that scenario, isn't it, where you do feel much more vulnerable in front of a smaller crowd of people, rather than just that big sort of crowd of people that you can kind of almost not see them as people almost. It's just this entity of this crowd. But obviously, yeah,
Yeah,
when it's people in front of you, it's a very vulnerable position to
yeah.
be in.
And if you got a stage and you've got lights and you've got a microphone in front of you, it's like, okay, this is like it's kind of expected of you. You know what I mean? But like sitting at home, is like you're trying to say, it's like, yeah, your dinner's ready. it's it's a very different world.
Oh, it is, it is. But I'm so glad you have persevered through any trepidation that you had with making this record, and you've managed to create this body of work. Which I say, I was listening to it last night in preparation for the interview, and you know, listeners, you've only had a little taste of it so far. I can honestly say I was blown away by the record from literally the first riff that came in on the opening track. I just sort of sat back and went, "Oh wow, this is like different for one." But also, I mean, much like Steve that we've talked about, I love my heavy music as well, and I instantly was just like, "Wow, this is very good." Was just my initial thoughts. Uh, so, listeners have had that just the one taste so far. So, "Hold Your Nerve" is the sort of lead single that has come out from the record, and obviously, um, it's a big decision, I guess, picking which song is going to lead the charge for the promotion of an album that is obviously very personal to you for a number of reasons. And I guess it's almost like picking your favorite child to some extent to say this is what I'm going to put out in the world first. How did you pick "Hold Your Nerve" out of the tracks on there?
Um, I don't know. I think it was just a kind of instinct, really. There's, I, I think with the first track, I just wanted to pick something that I thought would, kind of grab people's attention. And it's probably the hookiest. Well, it's weird because everyone, the feedback I'm getting is like, there's people are definitely seeing a very rock thing going on. But for me, it's almost like it's probably the most commercial thing on the record as well. And it's like I think it's probably I wouldn't even say it's close to Ash remotely, but there's a lot of stuff in the record that's a lot less Ash on there, let's say. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's like it was also it's I don't know. There's something about that song. It's taken me a long time to figure out what it's about, as well. Even though I wrote it, but yeah, it's like it's. I think when I wrote the first couple of lines from it, I was like, where's that come from, and what does it mean? And I couldn't figure it out. And it was almost like I was kind of like writing to try and figure out what was going on in the song. And it was only when we're shooting the videos where I kind of figured out what it might be about, especially those first couple of lines. Um, and it's quite dark, but it's I think there's a lot of guilt tied up in that song. Anyway, I won't say too much about it in case my kids watch this. But yeah, yeah. I don't. I think it's it's probably the most direct in terms of arrangement. It sort of gets to the point and gets in and out and does its thing like very succinctly as a single. But it kind of it stands up as something different to what I've done from Ash, but also maybe there are other tracks I might have chosen on there which would be like, oh, hang on, what on earth is this? It's and I guess with that one as well, it was like when I was like, and this is a kind of a general thing with the whole writing of it as well. It was like I think when I started things, it was almost thinking about what Ash would do, and almost doing the opposite. And that's not to say I don't love what Ash do. I absolutely adore it. I think, as I said, like Tim's an amazing songwriter. I think it's probably almost from a point of view of going like, well, I can't compete with that, so I want to take this somewhere else. But I think with this track and a few others, I think when I got to the point where sort of melodies started coming through and songs started getting finished, it was almost like, oh, maybe that Wheeler is rubbed off on me more than I thought over the last 20 years. You know what I mean? So it was like there was definitely a conscious thing, but then I remember sort of stepping back and sort of listening to the whole thing and going, and then suddenly started hearing little bits of, Tim's influence in there.
Yeah, I mean, of course he would rub off on you. They say that's spending that much time in the creative environment with him, but it's really fascinating, obviously, to get the insight into, how this project and this album has come together. Yeah, listeners obviously really need to be ready for it. The album is out on the 17th of April, and there's a lovely vinyl you can pre-order as well. So I encourage listeners, there'll be a link in the bio of this episode to go and do that. Regular listeners to the podcast know I'm obsessed with music videos. So I was really glad that you touched on the music video there. Obviously, so listeners, again, link in the bio. Go and check out the music video, which is much more than just your standard these days. I'm going to film myself playing the song and then put that out there. It's a bit of a concept video. So, I mean, Rick, how did you come up with the concept for the video and put it into practice?
Well, I can't take credit for that. I think full credit needs to go to Anthony Neal, who's worked on videos with Ash over the last, what, it must be 2.5 years, 3 years. It's weird. I knew him from like a very long time ago. I think his band did a gig with us like back in '95, and he happened to be on video shoot for Race the Night, which was like 2 albums ago. And he was sort of working on that, and we got chatting, and then he was like, hey, let's do a video at some point. And the first one he did was Crashed Out Wasted, which is just like incredible. We've never done videos like that, so it's like knew he was going to come up with something great no matter what. And it was only a few weeks ago. It was like February when we were doing the Ash tour. I saw him in London. He was asking how the Burned as Witches stuff was going, and I was like, yeah, we finally got a release date. And he was like, let's do a video. And we happened to have a day off in Norwich on the tour, which is quite close to where he lives. And he was like, right, find a cop car. We're going to tie you to the fence. And then we shot some stuff at the gig the next day, and then we shot some sort of like Apocalypse Now and kind of meltdown stuff happening in the hotel room as well. He just smashed it all together and did a great job. And I got to give credit to Mr. Mark Hamilton as well, who helped out on the video shoot, and he may also be in there somewhere for the more eagle-eyed of you.
Absolutely, the policeman.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, again, love music videos and love the detail in it, and yeah, listeners definitely need to check that out. And yeah, to wrap up talking about the album, the last song on the album, again, having had that sneak peek, I absolutely loved. To the Sky, listeners, it's called, and I can't wait for everyone to hear it. And my question about it is simply, did that always stand out as this needs to be the song that closes the record?
Yeah, I definitely, when I wrote it, it was like, okay, this is, yeah, there was no, it was like, and this is like going back to, talking about sort of like what Ash do and, what Ash don't do. It was like, I had this, the record was sequenced from quite an early point, which is something that Ash never do. It's almost like with Ash, we need to finish stuff and then get a sequence. So I was like, almost like reverse engineering. It was kind of like, got a sequence in mind and sort of like, this feels like a closer, and sort of like helped kind of inform sort of like lyrical choices as well, I think, and give it a bit of shape. So that was just like another sort of like me kind of like getting outside the getting outside of the comfort zone thing. But also, that song, it came from a riff, and it's like, if you've heard the album, you're probably not going to be surprised if I say Black Sabbath was like a major influence on this record. But for this one, it kind of came from like the riff to it. I remember I was listening to Master of Reality and Into the Void, which I was just I ended up sort of like posting something about it online. I was chatting with a mate, and I was going like, "It's the best riff like Black Sabbath have ever written." It's just that intro riff, and I was like, I started thinking like, why did they not turn that intro riff into like sort of like the main part of the song, because it's so good. And then I was just like, right, I'm going to try and write my version of this. So that was the genesis of that one. But yeah, and then I just kind of started layering harmonies on the chorus part, and it was just like, oh man, it's kind of got like an epic kind of feel to it. So it's just like made that into sort of the intro and the outro of it. And it's like, I think the producer engineer was kind of like sort of like saying it was kind of like Queen harmonies on on there, which wasn't quite intentional, but it's maybe just from doing the backing vocals for Ash. It kind of was just like, right, I'm going to lean into it on this song, and kind of layered it up. But it also kind of sums up the record in a way. It's like, like knowing that Steve Strange had been such an influence on the song, it was sort of like this song was almost like the Get Out clause for me, because it was just like, I didn't want to feel like, or didn't want friends of his to feel like I'm kind of trading on his memory or whatever. And it's almost the whole song is like slightly oblique, but it's almost like, when we die, like, who has ownership? It's like, it's like, you live on after you die, and you live on in people's memories of you, but are those memories like the actual person you are? And it's just like, it was almost like something to do with that. Yeah. So I didn't want to feel like, it's like I'm trying to make something out of his memory.
Yeah, no, I get that absolutely, and I mean, yeah, I picked up on it, as I say, just as the ending punctuation on the album there works so well, and yeah, listeners, Burned as Witch is the album, 17th of April. You have to check it out, and obviously around that time, you're also going to be breaking these songs on the live stage as well. You've got shows lined up in Sunderland, London, and Manchester, so listeners, if you live near, or even if you don't live near, and you can pop along to one of them shows, I think they're going to be a real moment, to get to hear these songs live. I mean, for you, Rick, you must be excited to be able to take this album to the people in such a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, rehearsals seem to be going pretty well now. It's like, we did one show. We did a show last year. Actually, it was just like a little bit of time in between Ash stuff, and kind of accidentally invited myself onto onto my mate's band's bill in Glasgow. And yeah, it nice to have the first show out of the way, to be honest, because like the minute I set the guitar down after finishing that, I was just like, I can't remember a single thing that happened. I think it was just like so much pure concentration. So yeah, it'd be nice to sort of like have that out of the way and just be able to kind of relax a little bit and enjoy the experience. But yeah, I've got like great band. I got my younger brother who's playing drums, who's like fantastic. And weirdly, one of Steve Strange's best mate, the bass player, actually played in a band with him many years ago. And we only sort of like, I knew who he was. So we kind of say hello to each other at gigs when Strangey was about. But it was after a memorial show in Belfast for Steve, where we happened to be on the same flight together. And he's like, "Oh, I'll give you a lift home." And then we sort of became mates, and we'd like hang out. And then I like told him about the project, and he's going, "Hope you haven't got a bass player yet." So yeah, it's just like kind of a little bit of like serendipity. I think Steve's mind would be absolutely blown to know that me and him are playing together as well.
Yeah. That's such a lovely little nugget. Yeah, absolutely. Serendipity, as you say. Like, yeah. And you say your youngest brother, Drummond. That's. But I'm liking it in my head a bit like obviously, Foo Fighters playing behind Dave Grohl is a bit of a challenge. Are you going to be critical, more or less, maybe, as it's your brother? I don't know. Uh,
No, no, I'm just like you play what you want. I mean, he's an absolute fantastic drummer in his own right. He doesn't need me breathing down his neck any stress, and I wouldn't do that anyway. I mean, I don't know, I'm pretty I'm pretty embracing of like live chaos and stuff. I don't worry about things being too perfect, and I like things taking on a life of their own. So.
yeah.
But also, speaking of serendipity, I'm glad you mentioned that again, because not only did we get Strangey's bass player, but when we decided, we were like, okay, April 17th is the release date. George, the bass player, told him about it. He was like, that's Strangey's birthday. I had no idea. I completely forgotten.
Wow.
And it's coming out because I was like, with the Black Sabbath link, I was like actually
Yeah.
trying to get it out this month for Friday the 13th because they released their first album on Friday the 13th, which I thought would have been just great. But then, things didn't happen. It was like, okay, April 17th, fine. So then when I got that news, it was just like,
Yeah, mind blown. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so I mean, listeners absolutely need to check this album out and check out the live show. We always just close out the podcast with a quick question around the live side of things. You're playing some amazing grassroots venues on these shows, and grassroots venues are integral to the future of live music, but they are struggling at the moment. So I'm collating a list. Well, every guest I just asked to give a shout out to one of their favourite independent venues, and my aim is to visit every single one of them. So, Rick,
okay.
what venue would you like to give a shout out to?
I'm going to give a shout out to Sneaky Pete's in Edinburgh, which we actually played there with for like was a music venue trust thing, sort of post COVID, and it's a great game. It's just like the like independent grassroots venues. There's some incredible gigs out there, and it's like you can tell that you can tell the ones that people have poured their heart and soul into it, and they just like everything's looked after really well. The bands are looked after really well, and it's like it it's more than just a job. It's like it's a way of life to these people, and I think when you go along to these places as a punter, you can feel that, and I I still think you're going to get a more unique experience in a grassroots independent venue than you're going to get anywhere else. And even if you look at stadiums, it's like everything that anyone they spend millions on a stadium gig trying to make it more intimate, and it's like just go and see an independent.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's I say this as a drummer because like a lot of the times I'm like stuck at the back and I can see maybe two people down the front, but the atmosphere is like just incredible. In fact, we on the Ash tour before Christmas, the name of the venue escapes me. We played in Blackpool for the first time, and it was just the atmosphere in there was like I don't think like people couldn't see, and I think it was a Saturday night, and everyone's like having a few drinks, and they're going, oh, I can't see a thing. Screw it, we're just going to go nuts. And it was just
Yeah.
like, the room was jumping like it was like 1996, and it was just like that. I mean, that was like during the day, we're just going like, oh man, the drum kit's not even going to fit in the drum riser. You know what I mean? It was just like about this height, and it was just like, but that gig's going to live in my memory for a long time.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Like you say, you can't replicate that feeling that you get in these smaller venues in a bigger venue. And there's venues like this in every town and city, or most at least, across the UK. So absolutely, listeners, get to a local show. And Sneaky Pete's in Edinburgh is on the list. So yeah, definitely. Again, listeners, if you're near there, make sure you're checking out that venue. Rick, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to talk to you on the podcast. This is such a phenomenal piece of work that I was really taken aback by when I listened to it last night. So listeners absolutely need to check this out. Pre-order the vinyl if you can. If not, usual streaming sites. It's all going to be on there on the 17th of April. Shows are coming up as well. So make sure, listeners, you're following the bands. You've got Burned as Witches on Instagram. You can also follow Rick at Onion Rick on Instagram as well to stay up to date with all the great stuff that is going to be coming from Rick in the future. That is my final message for the listeners. But I always give the final message to the guests. So, Rick, how would you like to close the podcast?
Oh wow,
Pressure.
We might have to edit this bit out while I come up with something. Wasn't expecting that. I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I think this is like, since they announced, this is the first kind of podcast interview that I've done, so it's gone very well. I'm glad it was with you.
Thank you so much.
Glad you're enjoying the record, and yeah, final word. I'd say, oh yeah, the vinyl. I'll mention the vinyl because Fierce Panda, who we've been with for the last two Ash albums, very graciously agreed to put this out. Not only that, but they graciously agreed to let me put the vinyl out, as they were like, oh, we're just going to do the digital side of stuff. So I was like, can I put it out in vinyl? So yeah, it's very limited run, and yeah, it's like, it's almost like, okay, I've done the bass player, the guitarist, the singer, and the drummer, and now I'm doing the record company as well. So yeah, if you get that vinyl, you can check it out. It's at burnedaswitches.com. And we're doing it's a very limited edition black vinyl. You don't see that very much these days.
No. No, it is a thing of beauty, listeners. Absolutely, definitely fits the vibe, the aesthetic of the album perfectly, I think.
Yeah, and artwork wise, that was my brother-in-law, who's like fantastic designer. He did the artwork, and it's just like perfect for the record. So thank you very much, Ben Curzon.
Yeah, absolutely love, how personal this record is in so many ways, and obviously the people around you that have helped support you with it as well. It is, yeah, it is lovely to hear. Really is.
Yeah, I mean, if I had so much support, from my own band, Tim and Mark have been nothing but supportive since the start, and engineer Graham Young, who really helped me out. He was just like, well, no budget record. Here's some preamps. Go and do your thing, and come and see me when you're finished. So he, like, without those people, this record, probably wouldn't have happened. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much to everyone involved in the record, because again, listeners, to take it home, you really are going to want to check this out. And the live shows and everything we've talked about, listeners, you know what to do. Go and make it happen, because it's a phenomenal record. So thank you once again, Rick, so much for giving up your time.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with Rick. You really have got to check out the album Burned as Witches, out on April the 17th. Make sure you follow Rick across social media to stay up to date with everything coming from him. You can also stay up to date with Full Pelt. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt, and on X and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. Finally, from me, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening, because we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast.